Hi, Ganit. Thank you so much for coming to the Investor Talk. How are you today?
I'm very well. How are you doing?
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time and spending with us and giving to our founders your great point of view and suggestion on how to fundraise and how to invest money in venture capital and startups. Can we start giving an introduction on yourself?
Sure. I'm Dganit. I'm from Israel, born and raised in Israel. I'm an engineer by profession. Most of my career I did in corporates, 17 years with the Intel Corporation from engineering management, several years in R&D in the US. The last position was the Israeli site manager for facilities and operations. After that, I was a VP R&D in a pharma company in Perrigo, and then a VP R&D in a seed company, Hazera, under Limagre. And that was the first time I saw and understood the agriculture deeper and realized how big the problem is and how big the climate change impact is going to be. And I decided to move into the entrepreneurship side. So I was a chairperson of the board, active chairperson in Via Aqua, doing RNA solutions for health enhancement in aquaculture. I was a CEO of a startup doing biopesticides. And in the last 4 years, I'm in investments in Agritech. Started as a venture partner with Andre Capital. We made investment in 4 companies. And since May of 2021, I'm the CEO of Smart Agro. We are a fund out of the Israeli Stock Exchange. And we have right now 6 portfolio companies.
Hey, this is an astonishing background. My sincere compliments. Yes, I do believe agriculture is probably the most impacted and impactful sector we have on earth. So it would be very nice to talk to you today. So we already talking, you already said you invest in agriculture. Now, can you be a little bit more specific? As agriculture is very huge.
So we are investing in Agritech companies in the several sectors. One, for example, is precision genetics. Our portfolio company, Better Seeds, is doing CRISPR-Cas editing. They're already capable of editing cannabis and hemp seeds and selling those seeds. And they're expanding into cocoa and cowpea and additional crops to help them cope with the climate conditions that are going to be more severe. We have one alternative protein company, which is Plantish. They're making a plant-based filet of salmon. We looked at investments in the supply chain optimization. There are more than 30% loss on the supply chain, and we made 2 investments there. One is Foodtech. Foodtech is people that came out of the Israeli, you can say it's not exactly the army, it's the security technology companies in Israel. And they come with very extensive information and knowledge on cameras. And they use that in Agritech to have a very early stage fruit count and fruit size distribution. And that way the farmer can actually act on it very early in the season and secure higher yields for his crop. And the second one is Agritech, that's working with food and beverages companies like Starbucks, Heineken, etc. What they do, they work with the farms as well as the whole supply chain of those companies. First for the agri-technic solutions on the farm itself and collecting the data and bettering the growth cycle. And all the streamlining into the factories of those corporates. And 2 more areas we touched in, as we think that water is going to be a huge problem. We invested in Supplant, that is doing precision irrigation, meaning they sense the plants and they are able to give exact recommendations of how much to irrigate and when to irrigate. They actually developed a solution that is currently without sensors, which is launching. And the last but not least is Aruga, replacing humans and bees in greenhouses, because we are heading towards massive extinction of bees with temperature rise and disease that attack them. And our guy is doing that with a robot that is moving through the greenhouse, doing the pollination with air puffs, and replacing humans for activities like trestling, lowering, etc. So 6 portfolio companies, we chose the areas very carefully after we analyzed the big gaps that exist right now in the Agritech area. We believe that Agritech will go into CO2 capturing as well as through either regenerative agriculture practices and additional practices that Agtech can adopt into CO2 capturing and trading. We believe that financing for farmers is going to be a big thing moving forward because of the insecurity of the ability to grow because of climate change. And insurance, of course, is going to be additional area that we're looking for. And of course, moving out of chemistry into biology, less impact on the environment when you grow, using less pesticides, fertilizers, and so on. Like making the agriculture very precise, very accurate to what each plant requires. And when you do that on mass production, this is a big thing.
Thank you so much, Dganit. What about where this company are located?
All our companies are currently Israeli, but we're not confined to invest in Israel. We have an advantage because we are located in Israel and the ecosystem is boiling. There are more than 400 startups doing Agritech in Israel. We were always very strong in Agtech. And the whole ecosystem in Israel is built for startups. It's government support and NGOs that are making connections. The DNA of entrepreneurship in Israel is very strong as well. And when an Israeli entrepreneur is starting a company, they never think about selling in Israel. They always look about how they're going to grow a multinational, global, multi-billion-dollar company. We think big. We love, expansion, and you will see that very bold the entrepreneurs regarding what their ambitions are.
I'm very familiar. I just finished a biz talk with an Israeli guy doing sensors and mobility. But yeah, I mean, in any way, I think Israel is by far one of the best places where to start up if you want to launch your venture. In which stage do you normally invest?
We invest at the growth stage. We do have some early stage companies, but one of the criteria that we're looking at is market traction and how easy it's going to be to generate revenue relatively fast. So the earliest we invested in is Plantish, that they're still working on the R&D of building the salmon fillet. But for example, with Auga, when we invested, we had a bee producer, BioBest, invest in the company and signing a distribution contract saying they would not be the next Kodak. They understand the problem with the bees is huge, and they understand we need to replace it with robots. So they invested and they distribute the robots. So you're looking at clear market traction and evidence that the company is going to be at least a $1 billion company. This is one of our criteria.
I mean, when investing, where do you find conviction? Which are your top concerns? Where do you see the most, the company itself, or you evaluate the team and the product?
So we start with the team. I think the team is the most important part of a startup. You can have an amazing team with a mediocre idea that can become $1 billion company, and you can have the best idea and the best solution with a very poor team, and it will fail miserably. So I believe that the team is a must, and that's where we put most of our due diligence effort, understanding, can this team work together? Can they listen? Are they listening? Because when we step in, we try to help the companies, because we see so many startups and we understand the market so deeply. It's a must to have a dialogue with the founders and with the management team. Now, I'm not saying they must always accept what I'm saying. I'm saying they need to listen and decide, because they're managing the company, what they're going to do with that information. So we're looking for strong teamwork, strong listening skills, the ability to touch the market and not assume what's happening in the market. In agriculture, we call it green fingers. You need to know how to touch the plant and how it works and how it thinks. And you have to spend time in greenhouses to understand how the farmer thinks. Otherwise, you're going to miss it completely. We saw a few companies like that. So the second thing is the product market fit. Understanding that, you bring another system to the farmer, the willingness to pay might not be there because the farmer's margins are not that high. So first of all, are you selling to the farmers, or are you selling to the packing houses, or are you selling to huge farmers like Wonderful or Up Harvest in the US or Costa in Australia? Or are you trying to sell to the poor guy in Africa that has less than 1 dunam behind his house? So we're looking for that ability to make sure that the traction is there, or sell to the food and beverages companies and so on. So needs to make sense that the product actually have a strong fit to the market.
You really need to understand the farmers. You're right. I come from my family. My granddaddy was a farmer. How tough, how complicated could be that time. Today we have much more technology, but it's still complicated. There is nothing to do. How often do you like to meet the founders before investing and, of course, after investing?
So it depends on the company, because you understand from my background that when we join an investment, we bring a lot of value to our portfolio companies. So it can be a weekly one-on-one with the R&D manager to help define the R&D program, for a quarter or so to get them going. And it can be a quarterly meeting to see how things going and update, or it can be a full week of working hand in hand to decide on strategic directions. It really depends on the company, on the stage, on what's required. And sometimes, you just need to let them run and they do it perfectly without your involvement. So it's really a constant conversation with the founders and the management team. It's not always the CEO that I'm talking to the other C-levels as well. And it's really wherever we can help, we're stepping in and helping. And of course, when rounds start, we help with money raising of the next round.
When you talk about adding value, how exactly do you add value to them?
I managed R&D, I managed operations, I transfer technologies from R&D to operations more than once. And when you are a VP R&D, you must work very closely with the marketing to make sure that your product market fit is 100% accurate, because you're spending a lot of money in R&D. You want to make sure there are no mistakes in what you're developing. So all of that is very easy for me. It's almost intuitive for me to look at what's happening in the company and help the manager understand where they need to work. We help with hiring sometimes, because people know me, they approach me when they look for a job. So I know who is looking for a job and who's good and who's not that great. So you can also help with matchmaking of senior people into organizations. So it's really varies from one to another. Some companies are saying, you know what, we really need to pick your brain more often. And some say, okay, once a quarter, let's have a chat and see if we can use your help. So it's really driven, and it's a pull by the company. I'm not pushing.
In terms of investing, do you lead your round, or you go just your own, or do you co-invest?
We prefer to co-invest or follow. We believe that at the stages that we invest, there are other aspects to cover that are more global. So we prefer that if the leader is not necessarily from Israel, we provide the complementary of being the feet on the ground in Israel to work with the team to success. and our check size is up to $2 million. So if we join a round of 30 million, like we did in Agritask, I can't lead around that size.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of funding, you invest in growth stage, but probably after your round, there will be another maybe. Are you going to help your startup to find new investors working into the round?
First of all, we need to make sure they're ready for the round and define what the round goals are. So when you invest in a company, you're already starting to define the fundable milestones for the next round. What are you trying to achieve with the money that you just raised? We usually do that during the due diligence of before we invest to make sure that when the money is landing in your bank, what is the plan? We don't invest and then think. So with those fundable milestones and the ability of the team to execute, your ability as an investor to recommend investing in company you already invested in is higher. So I try when I bring my friends and my network into investing in companies that I'm already invested in, is to give them as clear as possible picture of what's happening in the company so they can make a decision to step in when they do. Now, another point is that our position in Israel right now is that if we invested in a company, it's already considered a top-notch company because our due diligence is not everyone is accepted to the Smart Agro Club. So when you are in a Smart Agro portfolio company, it's already put you in a different level than other startups.
I've been talking to many VC, some of them yes, many of them not. But for example, there are so many corporate venture capitalists where they really try to push cooperation, interaction between the companies they have in portfolio. Do you do something similar?
We offer that opportunity. I'll give you an example. Aruga is in the greenhouses and Foodtech is developing a module that can check tomatoes and give yield predictions there. So those two companies, when the model is ready, can collaborate and go together because Aruga don't have that model ready. It's in their pipeline. So this can pull in the pipeline. It's a win-win between the two companies. Same thing with the Supplant, the Foodtech. Supplant is already in the field selling more than Foodtech right now. So their expansion is wider and they can take Foodtech as an additional advantage for Supplant to sell because they're coming with the irrigation control and they connect it also to the fruit size. So if you irrigate more, you can get higher size before you pick. So this can be a very strong complementary solution that Supplant can offer to their future customers or current customers on orchards, okay, or vineyards. So it really depends on the ability of the companies to complement each other and to work together. So what we do, we offer it, we tell the CEOs, look, we think there is a business opportunity and they need to take it forward. We're not forcing anything. It needs to match the strategy of the company. And again, the only person that can make decisions for the company is the person that sees it all. It's the CEO and the board.
Absolutely. What about pivoting? So many startups, even in the more mature stage, when it comes to pivoting, of course, this is more for the early stage, but can happen also to the mature stage. They can't understand that pivoting can be crucial to existing or not. So what's your point of view on pivoting when needed?
I'll give you an example. Agritask, I looked at them 3 years ago. They were very interesting, but they sold the farm management solution to farmers. And I said, this business proposition has very low stickiness. It requires a very strong sales team because you need to go from farmer to farmer and offer the software. The competition on local farm management is relatively high. And in most places, the farmer stays with their Excel, unfortunately, okay? But if they go up to the food and beverages companies, then, you know, when Starbucks is buying coffee, they say to the farmers that grow for them, you must use this company because this is my terms for you to get a contract for me to buy your coffee, because there's standardization of how we manage farms. There is standardization of how we measure ESG goals. And so going up the chain, first of all, the willingness to pay is usually higher. Your market reach becomes wider. And that was the point when we decided to invest in Agritech. We needed to see the pivot before we invested.
I mean, let's say you had three startups very similar in the business model, in maybe the market size and valuation. Which can be the critical point that trigger your ultimate decision to invest? What can really make the difference for you?
Team. The team is going to make the change, the difference.
So it's
you're practically getting married with the startup. Your future and success depends on the success of this startup. So then it must be chemistry with the leaders of this company. You must feel like it's, you're adopting a child. It's a family. And for me, I'm a strong believer in the startups I invested in. So it's like something that I'm really committed to personally. So I believe it's all personal. So for me, if they're similar, I will choose by the team.
I mean, this is more personal. Why did you decided to become an investor?
I moved into Agritech entrepreneurship with the end in mind to make sure that my children and my grandchildren will have food to eat. And I asked myself, what would be the best use of my brain power and capabilities? And I said that I can lead a startup, but I will impact only one company. If I invest, I can touch many startups, and I'm not touching only my portfolio company. I'm helping the whole ecosystem getting better. Any startup, even if I did not invest in, and asks to meet me and pick my brain, I will meet with them and give them my feedback. Okay, so I'm here to grow the ecosystem, to make it better, to make as many solutions available to farmers and the ecosystem as possible, because we're gonna be out of water and food soon. People don't understand that, but it's not like it's not 50 years from now. We're talking 10 years from now, we're gonna struggle. Even this year, Europe lost about 20 to 30% of the crop because of the drought and the strong rains that came just right after it. Sometimes it was hail. In Italy, for example, it was hail.
Yeah.
You will not be able, in the war between Russia and Ukraine, they did, to my best knowledge, there is very little sowing of wheat in Ukraine this year, less than the usual. 30% of the wheat of the world is coming from Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah.
So I'm saying between climate and geographic and geopolitical instability, we're going to have problems with supplying food to people.
Indeed, absolutely. That's a big problem we need to address as much as we can, as fast as we can. What can be the perfect recipe to pitch you or convince you?
First of all, to understand that you're solving a big problem and you made some research of what's out there. Like if there are like 100 of companies solving this problem and you're the 110 or 1,000, what's going to make you so different to take the whole competition out or take a significant market share? So timing is critical. So I need to understand how big the problem is. Do you understand what your competition is? What is your go-to-market strategy? And most important, what are the skills that the team is bringing in order to solve this problem? On top of that, we need to understand that there is a strong R&D. There is a strong understanding of the technology and knowledge that's going to go and solve the problem. Sometimes it's not smart to write IP necessarily, patents, but you need to protect your intellectual property somehow, through trade secret, through whatever, but something that you invent needs to be somehow protected. So I think that's kind of, there is usually a structure to the pitch. Start with the problem, show me the team, talk about how you're going to solve this problem with this team and why you're going to win the others.
Thank you, and that's very helpful for our founders. What's your suggestion to founders where they need to approach a VC? I do believe today spray and pray is still a big deal. How they should search for venture capitalists or angels, anyway, investors in venture capital?
So I think one thing is that startups need to remember a VC sees about 100 startups before they decide to invest in one. So the ratio of VC to startups is to a decision is about, I can see 100 and decide to invest in none. But in general, rule of thumb, 1 out of 100 reviews is winning. Same thing the other way around. So a startup needs to see about 100 VCs in order to find the right match. So don't go and just, try all over the place. Target the VCs that are in the area of interest. Like I always say that we will not invest in any animal-related technology because I think the impact of animal growth to the planet is so horrible, mostly cows, that I'm not going to contribute to this disaster, okay? So don't approach me with another collar for cows, okay? So target your VCs and do some research. Look at the LinkedIn of the people that you're going to meet. Understand what they did before. Understand what they're looking for. A lot of VCs state exactly what they're looking for in a company. If the most important thing is the team, make sure the team is very visual. If what they look for is strong technology, bring your CTO. Understand, do homework. Another thing is follow-up. If we met and we said that you need to send me some materials, don't sit on it. Send it within a reasonable time. Otherwise, it's lost in the flow. There's so many mails, there are so many companies approaching us. It's going to get lost if you don't do a very tight follow-up. See if the other person you're sitting in front, the VC, is suitable for you. If you think they're not your typecast, don't go with this VC. Sometimes beggars can be chooser, but if you can choose the funds that will take you far, people that you will be able to work with long-term because you are getting married with them. With the most important thing in your life, your startup, after your family, of course.
It does. I mean, you said already about IP, but is for you mandatory to invest?
Agritask IP lies in the software. There is no registered patent, okay? From the other side, Aruga has many patents. So it really depends on what you're trying to protect. Some don't make sense to write patents. Some, if you don't put patents, you will be lost.
I mean, this is my last question. Inside the Agritech or agriculture, what can be the most promising sector, niche inside this big market for a founder to start a venture?
One is hard. There are many areas, but I think that soil, fertility, and water, those are the two big things that are going to make it or break it for the agritechs in the next few years. The soil is degrading to dirt, and water availability is getting very low. So water management and soil quality are going to be the two big things for agriculture moving forward.
Dganit, thank you so much for coming to the Investor Talk. It's been a very great pleasure for me. Thank you.
Thank you for hosting me. Really enjoyed the call.